Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 473, recorded live on Sunday, May 14th. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have, everyone's returning. We have Antha.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome back. We also have Arkat.
Hi, Mom.
Does your mom listen to the show?
No. Thought I'd be a little different, though.
Yeah, there you go. We also have Evilbeeker.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, welcome back, sir. I think our newest guest these days, actually. So, this week's screenshot: the family that slays together stays together. In the 316th screenshot of the week, a nice little family shot, even complete with kids, or at least a halfling.
Kid, yeah. I should say it's a gnome.
Oh, is it? Yeah,
Ugly little gnome.
That might be the case. Let's see. We'd like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or our website, DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by CyberAirs, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will not be next weekend. I will be working... If I do manage to get out a recorded show that I was hoping to get out this weekend, that would be great. But I'm not going to commit to that at all at this point. So the next show will probably be in 2 weeks. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages. We also have our calendar at DDOcast.com. You can subscribe to that if you want. I'm usually a lot better than I have been the last month about updating that, including store sales and bonus days, if you want to keep track of that stuff. On the podcast this week, we have a little bit of game news. We've got a bit of lightning posts from a couple weeks back. But our main discussion is going to be a debate episode. And there's not really an overarching theme for this, but we do have a few connected questions, but should be a lot of fun. As we've been doing recently with our debate episodes, these are not going to be, we're not picking a winner. We're just going to be talking about some questions, some of which are from listeners, some of which are just kind of things I pulled out from kind of the current conversation that's going on, which is kind of where the first one is. So everyone's going to get an opportunity to kind of have an opening argument. We'll kind of go around the table and have a lot of fun. Our first question: should the self-healing penalty be reduced in Reaper mode? Where this is coming from is there's a portion of the player base is kind of calling it a solo tax, unfairly penalizing solo players in Reaper mode. But that's kind of the conversation that's going on. But I thought this would be a good question for us to start off with. And let's start off with Arkat.
All right, so the short answer is no. The Reaper was supposed to be tough, and it seems to me that one of the goals was to encourage grouping. So if you're all by yourself and you have no way to heal yourself, maybe you should think about grouping. You don't have to solo in Reaper. I mean, you can solo an Epic Elite if you want, or Legendary Elite. But honestly, to solo in Reaper and to make that demand seems, kind of selfish to me.
Okay, Antha?
I'm going to say no, because the Reaper is an optional difficulty with the main goal to be a challenge. I think the healing penalty is actually pretty fair. And, I mean, we complained about the mobs having gobs and gobs of hit points on Epic Elite. So I think this pretty much balances it out. If people are finding it taxing, lower the skull or run Elite. I personally solo, and you know what? I don't really have a problem with it, and I throw up an LFM just while I'm going in there. I usually fill up a group.
And Evilbeeker, what are your thoughts?
I am also a no on this, and for me, I'm more of a traditionalist D&D player from pen and paper days. If you don't have a cleric in your party, you're asking for trouble. Even at higher levels, you can't ignore the benefits that a cleric or a favorite soul can add to a party. Self-healing is nerfed a little bit, but like everyone's saying, it's supposed to be harder. If you want to walk through a 5-skull dungeon, then you shouldn't be playing DDO. It should be hard.
Yeah, I mean that was one of their design goals, right? Is that Reaper mode is supposed to be difficult. I liked it several, and pretty much every time he talks about it on the forums, he prefaces by saying, "Reaper mode isn't supposed to be fair. We're trying to kill you," and then he goes from there. Yeah, I think I would also say no as kind of a blanket statement, and I think the biggest thing is, and another thing I was talking about is, if you think about the design, right? The intent and design was to kind of encourage groups and make it harder and reward group play as kind of a method of dealing with some of the stuff. They want it to be harder, and one of the ways that one way that they can do that from a design standpoint is to encourage you to have groupings and have coordination and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, if you go, like you were talking about going back to your pen and paper days, Evilbeeker, that, I mean, party is a major part of Dungeons and Dragons at its core, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Between cleric, rogue, you got to have your good variety of character classes, or you may not finish the mod or the dungeon. It's just as simple as that.
when I think about my pen and paper days, like, it's hello. The thing I remember most about playing pen and paper was the community aspect, having fun with people, right? That's not to say that I don't solo in DDO, and it's a very different ballgame. But at the core, Dungeons and Dragons is built around the idea of a party. So I think the idea of creating an environment where coordination and healing each other is rewarded is kind of a neat aspect. I think also, just from a challenge standpoint, if you were to take out the self-healing penalty, how would you deal with it being a challenge? Because one of the things that they run into from a design standpoint is, if everyone can self-heal in epic levels, how do you create challenge? Or how do you adapt to that challenge? Do you guys have any thoughts on some of that stuff?
I don't think it would be a challenge if they took out or reduced the healing penalty. I mean, everyone would just get through it the same way. Just loads of scrolls, loads of wands, potions, whatever.
Or more damage to us, right? I mean, that's kind of the other flip side of the option, probably. But at a certain point, more damage is just one-shots, so is that fun?
No, absolutely not.
Mm-mm.
I would say, though, that there was one thing that I was thinking about this question is, in general, I would say no. But I think potions might be a place where you could take that penalty out. Or at least like the cure potions. Or perhaps more better for their bottom line, the store healing potions might be a good thing to allow full healing from. I mean, the potions aren't going to do a whole lot in general anyways. At least the cure potions.
Those sovereign healing or curing potions, though, those are really nice. And if they really wanted to drive some store sales, taking the penalty off those, well, that would be one way to do it.
Well, and the thing about potions too is it's not like you have the option to use them on other players, and it does, I think, provide a little bit of interesting self-sufficiency mechanics. And in the grand scheme of things, like I said, I don't think you're going to keep up with a lot of damage with potions. And there's certainly way more effective ways to heal yourself in Reaper mode or have others heal you than using potions. But it's kind of silly that, the Cure Serious Wounds potions give you like 8 hit points on R1. So... That's where I would say if you were going to relax the self-healing penalty, that's where we'd want to do it on.
I'd just say bring a hireling and learn some hireling control.
Sure. I have done that a lot recently. It certainly makes it easier. Although, at the same time, it kind of makes it a little less fun to a certain extent. But
yeah.
If you can't find people to run with you anyways, and you're just running it, yeah, I'd say get a hireling, because it's pretty tedious to try and heal yourself with especially in lower levels of cure potions and wands if you can use them. So, any other thoughts on this, or should we move on to the next question?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good too.
All right. So this question comes from Short Pact on Canid. Are Reaper rewards good incentive or bad power creep? And we'll start with Antha this time.
I'm a little in the middle with this question. I think it's a bad power creep with the enhancements having the core abilities still work in like heroic or epics. However, the rewards like the Reaper item type and the mythic bonus, I think that's a nice incentive and a good power creep. I mean, if you're going through the difficulty, it's kind of nice to get a little something out of it.
Okay.
That's kind of where I stand on it.
Sure. Evilbeeker?
Well, so my Reaper experience has mostly been heroic, and I love the XP bonus that you get for running Reaper on a first-time quest. I think that was a really good idea. I think that's a great incentive to, get a full party, get as much XP as you can. Power creep, right now, I don't think so. Maybe a year or two from now, maybe we'll have a better idea once people have TR'd a bunch of times and have a lot more Reaper XP. But for now, where things are in the beginning here, I don't think it's a power creep at all.
Arkat?
Regarding power creep, I have real difficulty with calling it power creep, especially considering the vast majority of the enhancements and so forth are usable only in Reaper. So it isn't like you're running, heroic normal dungeons and just blowing away everybody else because you've got these really, really super duper awesome, Reaper enhancement trees. Regarding the incentives, I've never ever been in favor of incentives for running a Reaper mode beyond having some sort of a posted leaderboard saying such and such did this dungeon at this many skulls and this amount of time. It seems to me most people who are really super into the Reaper stuff are the same people that post on the achievements forum, and they post, we did this legendary elite hound in 2 minutes and 59 seconds kind of thing. It's those people that I think Reaper probably might appeal to most, and therefore the best way to compensate or to incentivize them is to put their names up in lights, if you will, and say, hey, this guy did this and beat it kind of thing.
I think some of those people just like the extra challenge too. I'm trying to remember the guild that is it overrated.
Over on, I think they were on Kenneth.
Something like that. But they really like challenging themselves
Orient.
and running really hard content, and they did a Reaper 4 riding the Storm out, which is pretty impressive. So I think there's a lot of people that like that as a reward, just having the extra challenge. Yeah. They're playing for challenge. Maybe not all the time, but occasionally they like to try that out. What about cosmetics? What do you guys feel? How do you feel about cosmetics as being a reward?
I mean, anything that you can get in a Reaper mode that you can't get anywhere else, I mean, technically that's a reward. A cosmetic, yeah, cosmetics are great. I picked up the fiery eyes for my Dragonborn as soon as the day that they were available after the helmet fix, I believe. But yeah, I mean, anything that says, hey, I did a 5-skull Reaper quest, and then you can buy a little badge for your armor or a special hat or something like that. I mean, anything that gets people excited about doing those types of quests to me is a win.
Sure.
I don't particularly care about the cosmetics.
I'm with you.
Those cosmetics that they're offering, like the wings and those sort of things. I mean, there's like one guy on Reaper on on Kyber, frets over on Epic Raiders, or rather, yeah, Elite Raiders rather. I'm sorry. He got like to the first level, and I don't know that anybody else has gotten even to the first level of rewards. So, yeah, okay, they're great, they're there, but I just
You're not a cosmetics guy.
I just meh is really how I feel about them.
Sure. I'd be more interested in them if the let me be careful because I don't mind that the cost to get them is a high cost and like a long-term goal. My issue is more that if they're going to be that high, I think they should be an account-based, or at least like on that server, as opposed to a specific character. Because that I feel if you're going to make the price that high, that's a bit of a penalty to someone who plays more than one character. So that's kind of where I run into problems with the rewards. I don't think they're bad power creep. I mean, let's just say that you managed to get a Reaper bonus on every slot. You're talking about what? Plus, some of them are PRR and MRR. Some of them are melee and range power. I mean, sure, if you found some on every slot, you could probably start talking about having, around plus 20 to PRR and MRR and plus 20 to your melee range power. In the grand scheme of things, 20 PRR and MRR is not that much. At best, it's giving you, 10% damage reduction, and that pretty much assumes that you have none to begin with. And if you have none to begin with and you're running Reaper mode, may I suggest some alternative gearing choices? But the +2 stats, casting stats on a helm, that's pretty nice. But they only put it on one slot. And there's also other things to consider when you're talking about the gear. That okay, you found this item with a Reaper bonus on it. Does it fit with the rest of your gear set to begin with, right? So there's some challenges there. And the enhancements, it's all pretty minimal. It's like +1 to damage or to hit and damage in a couple places. Some spell point. The spell point hit points. Actually, the spell points I believe you can use in non-Reaper, and the hit points are only Reaper, but I'm not positive on that. I probably should have looked at those a little closer before we did the show. But I mean, a lot of that stuff that you can get out of those enhancement trees, there's not a lot. We're not talking about plus 80% to damage or anything crazy like that, right? So, I think that having some incentive to run Reaper so you can use it even in Heroic is okay, if it's balanced well, and I think it's pretty well balanced. But that's kind of where I stand on everything. Let's see. So we'll go on to the next question. Any other closing thoughts on Reaper rewards?
Nope.
Devs, please make it account based or lower the cost. That's my only. That's where I get into it. I think there's kind of a side question there. Is like, what is bad power creep? And I feel like in general, DDO has done a pretty good job of managing that. I think if you did a graph, you'd have a fairly, a couple of bump ups, usually with major content releases, but I don't think they do a terrible job with power creep.
Oh, I don't know. I have some, and this is just because of my 3.0 and 3.5 playing. It seems like people had major burrs under their saddle when they introduced +7 and +8 stat items below, in heroic levels. And of course,
Sure.
You remember if you played epic levels and pen and paper, anything like a +7 strength belt was an epic item. So some people seem to be overly attached to, the notion that anything over +6 is strictly epic. So there might be some power creep in that sense.
Yeah, but I think internally, as far as the game, outside of lore and outside of anything like that, I mean, yeah, there's been bumps, but I think the most critical thing I tend to see about power creep is, oh, this 6-year-old loot, named loot, is now irrelevant because of the new random loot.
Right.
That's power creep. That's kind of what happens. And if you don't keep giving new things to look for, I mean, there's basically, I think there's basically two options, right? We don't get better loot, so some people are left wondering why they're looking for the new loot because they already have really good loot. So why would you run that? Or you come out with improved loot that gradually improves so that people keep going after it.
Well, if you do that, I mean, eventually you're going to run into the point where the level cap is too low for how good the new loot is. So it doesn't look like there's any time soon that they're going to raise level cap. So, I mean, there will be a point at which, there's just no point in it, and the game becomes super easy, even on 10 skulls at some point.
Sure, maybe, but I would say that like the new content, like riding the storm out, it's not exactly really easy, and all the masses are running.
Well, true,
So
true.
I think we're a ways away from having a problem where the gear, and we'll actually have a fun little conversation about this here in a minute, but I think we're a ways away from where the gear makes it invalidates the harder content in the game. I don't think we're there yet at all. So, and it's lost my train of thought. But that's where power creep is, right? So some power creep is good, too much is bad, and I don't think we've hit. We've had some moments where the power creep has bumped up, like when the random loot got revamped, and there were a lot of technical reasons for why they did that as well. Epic Orchard comes to mind as a pretty big bump.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple other places that are pretty big bumps as well. But yeah, there you go. Let's move on to the next question, which will kind of dovetail nicely off what we were talking about. This came from Weavemaster on Galenda. Is gear more important than builds and how you play a character? And we'll start with Evilbeeker.
Well, it depends on how you play. You could say, well, hey, I like playing a fighter or I like playing a paladin, and you stick with those groups of classes and you build those classes up, and then you get the gear as it comes along. Or you find a really great piece of gear or a couple pieces of gear and say, hey, I want to take that and I'm going to build a character around that. And it depends on what kind of player you are. So if you want to play a fighter all the way to 20th level, and then you want to play a paladin all the way to 20th level, that's great. If you get 7 levels in and you find a piece of gear and you're like, hey, I want to splash a couple levels of monk or bard or something in there too. It's all how you want to do the character. I've had instances where I've picked up a great piece of gear and I built the character completely around that piece of gear. Eventually, the higher you get, well, maybe that gear is not as relevant anymore, but then you kind of move on. But then there's other times when, like when the monk came out, hey, I took a monk and I said, I like this class. I took it all the way to 20th level. And, and you got to play what you're comfortable with. I mean, a lot of people don't like spellcasters. A lot of people don't like a lot of button mashing. It's all in, there's enough variety, I think, in DDO where to mold it around your type of game style.
Sure. Arkat?
Of the three, I think skill and knowing how to play your tune and the game in general is the most important thing. Gear is also important. Notice that when a lot of people post their builds on the forums and stuff, they tend to have either above or way above average gear. So I think there's a reason for that. Gear is important. Builds are nice, but they seem to be. It's not necessary to have the flavor of the month build in order to succeed at high difficulties. Personally, very few of my builds are optimal, but yet I seem to make them work, and I think that's probably a combination of the fact I've been playing a long time, so I've been able to get a lot of the good gear, not all of the best stuff, especially like from the most recent thing with all the stuff that we have to get. Oh shoot, slavers. I haven't even touched slavers really, but even without that really good stuff, I seem to make the most of what I have, and I seem to do pretty well. So I think skill and knowing how to play the tune is the most important.
Antha?
Well, I definitely agree with what he said about skill and knowing how to play the game. But if we're looking at more of the subject, I think it's more of like a 60-40 for gear being more important than your build. I mean, obviously, if you've got a really good gear and really good build, you're going to be an awesome player if you've got the skill. But I think you can balance out character handicaps with gear. So, yeah, I mean, that's why we're constantly chasing the new gear, the new best item that comes out every update.
Yeah, I would say, depending on how you're approaching this question, if you're someone who's looking to improve your gear and stuff, is gear more important than build and how you play a character? There's three things there, right? How well you play a character, your build, and your gear, and they all kind of are symbiotic. Now, someone who plays the game and has a really good understanding of the game, does that really well, can get away with less in the way of gear and more, shall we say, creative builds. But on the converse side, really good gear and a really solid build can forgive a lot of sins in how well you play and how well you know the game. So there's definitely a sliding bar. I'm reminded of people in kind of manufacturing, I think it's more than that, but jobs might be familiar with it. There's this idea of a triangle where you can have good, fast, and cheap. Pick two. The idea being that there's a relationship between those three. And I think there's a very similar relationship between the gear, build, and how well you play a character. Not to say that you can only pick two of them, but there's a relationship, and the better of all of them is better than only one of them. But I would say when I hear this question, one of the things that kind of comes to mind is how much should I pursue incrementally better gear? And I'm not sure that's necessarily the intent of the question, but I wouldn't stress about farming for this one item for months on end to get a +1 to strength over what you already have. Right. But conversely, if there's an item that you can get that is +8 to strength, that's going to do a lot more for you, if that makes sense. Is gear important? Yes. Is a good build important? Yes. Is one more important than the other? I think generally, I would say a stronger build will serve you more than stronger gear. In my personal experience, particularly with heroics, I think Evilbeeker, you spend more time in heroics than any of us. But I would say that, particularly at lower levels, your build is probably going to give you more bang for your buck than a lot of gear. Partly from the standpoint you'll outgrow your gear pretty quickly, and also because you can generally just pick up whatever you find and run quests.
Yeah, and every couple levels you can reassess your gear, take a peek in the auction. Hey, I got a pair of boots. Is there something better out there? Or maybe you run a couple of groups of quests and sometimes there's people that are willing to trade. Say, hey, I'm looking for a good pair of boots. What do you got? I need a good necklace. Something like that. I've had instances of that several times.
Yeah, I think just from the standpoint of having played characters that, I don't keep I hardly keep any TR gear. And having played characters and just kind of gone with whatever I find on the ground, I would say that a build is going to be more important than your gear. Gear is still helpful. I would say maybe there's one kind of caveat to that is if you're a DC caster, I think that's kind of the one build that gear becomes really important. Mostly from the standpoint of DC casters, unlike pretty much anything else you can do in DDO, DC casters either you succeeded or you failed. It's very binary. Yes, you insta-killed or held it, or no, you didn't, and it's still coming and trying to kill you. Compared to everyone else, where you can kind of make incremental progress, right? If you're just doing damage to something, you can work towards an end goal, whereas DC casting is yes or no. And because of that, I would say that for that character, gear is going to be really important. I'm still not sure it's more important than a build, because that's also important. But there's going to be a couple pieces of gear that you're going to... Anything that's got a plus to DC, that something that you cast, is going to be gold. And I think that's where gear really becomes important. Anyone else?
Can't disagree with that.
Cruising
Nope,
right
I
along
agree.
here.
Nope.
All right. This will be kind of an interesting question. What is the best quest to have Dimension Door in? Kind of a little fun one. Might be a little bit more debatable on our answers on this one. And I believe we're starting with Antha this time.
Well, I think the right question is, what quest shouldn't you have Dimension Door in? I mean, it's so great. But going off the question, I'd probably say Phantom the Depths, since it just takes so much time off the quest. You just run there, Dimension Door back right as you pull the lever, and you're pretty much at the end fight.
Sure. Evilbeeker?
Tomb of the Wizard King. That one I got to put at the top of my list, because you got to run back and forth to the front all the time, and if you got Dimension Door, it takes so much time off of just running around through the pyramid.
Which can be dangerous, not just time-consuming.
Yes, that too.
No. Arkat, what's your favorite one here?
I like the Kenneth challenges. So the lava caves and so like circles of power, colossal crystals, and the extraplanar palace with the dragon's horde and labor shortage. More the lava caves, because the lava caves are much bigger. So if you're solo, especially if you're soloing, if you're trying to solo those kind of challenges, and you hear that kobold dude yell out incoming, you got to throw up your dimension door, and so you can get back there and protect those little kobolds, and having the D door is the way to go, especially in a place as large as the lava caves.
It's an interesting choice. I wonder if semantically we can accept the answer as it being a quest, but it is, I think, a very optimal place to have, especially if you're trying to deal with those kobolds and the teleporters and stuff. It's a lot easier to maneuver and actually get to your goal with a detour. You're far less likely to leave a kobold stranded behind if you have a detour as well. Which can, if you leave a kobold behind, that can lead to some very unfortunate consequences for that poor kobold.
Lose a star because of it.
Yeah, and some of them absolutely. No, that's a really good answer. There's a few of those kobold mining quests where buying a teleporter or not buying a teleporter is a star, but you can still use detour. So I can really no, I like the answer. The first one that came to mind for me was Shadow Crypt. Although you do get two uses of D-Door free in there. Usually you can't use a D-Door in the quest, but I mean if you don't know the way how to navigate in there, i.e. you don't have a map and a guide, it is very easy to get lost in that quest. And starting over is sometimes the best way to go in there. So. But there's some really good ones. Any honorable mentions? I mean, we could go on this for days, but...
Yeah,
Anything?
actually...
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. Actually, the very end of that first Dolaris quest, when you pick up the book and then everything comes out of the woodwork to attack you, if you have a dimension door up there, you can just get right back to the beginning and jump out real quick, as opposed to trying to log out while stuff's attacking you.
Pretty high, pretty over level at that point, wouldn't you?
Well, I think you can cast Dimension Door at 7th level.
Yeah.
Is it 7th level? All right.
Yeah.
Diplomatic
I'd like-
impunity?
Diplomatic impunity is a good one.
I like having Dimension Door for any of the Veil quests, because if you actually recall out and then recall again, you don't wind up back in Meridia. You wind back in the beginning of, with the place, the beginning of the road to get to Meridia. If you finish the quest and dedoor and then walk out the door and then recall, you wind up going straight to Meridia. So it makes, it's kind of a real time saver to get back to Meridia if you had dedoor in the quests.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Yeah, excellent.
There's a lot of, dedoor may be one of the top 5 useful spells in the game. If nothing else, it can make a get out of jail free card if things go south sometimes. You can't use it for every place. If the end fight of Temple of Deathworm is going badly, don't dedoor. There is no portal to go back once that end fight starts. So there you go. There's some ideas for where you might want to have a dedoor in. We'll get to our last question, and this one should be kind of fun. This came from Cyrillus on Argonessen. What, from a pen and paper lens, is mechanically the best DDO-specific dungeon? Now, the exclusion here was modules. Modules are out the door, so we can't pick Haunted Halls or Slavelords. The ones that are based on pen and paper dungeons. So we'll start with Evilbeeker this time. What from a pen and paper lens do you like for a DDO dungeon?
Well, the one that stands out for me, and the one that my group had probably the most fun in recent memory, was A Study in Sable. Because you're searching through this big giant house, you're looking for, clues, and you bring the clues back, and then they get you more clues, and then finally you get to the very end. There's a fair bit of combat, but not everything is hack and slash. You have to find this, you have to look for this. I really liked that aspect of that quest, as opposed to a lot of others where it's flip a lever here, move forward, flip a lever here, flip a lever here. That's not pen and paper. The Study in Sable is my top pick.
Arkat?
Well, okay, so it comes down to like a personal like I really had a lot of fun in this quest, and I could see it being run in paper, pen and paper wise, but it also doesn't have like multiple roles that multiple people can or should be the ones to handle. So maybe I'll do those quests as an honorable mention, but the quest that I like the most that I could actually see being done in a pen and paper game is Stormcleave Outpost. That was when I first started to play DDO way back in 11 years ago. That was my gaming group. That's the one that we really liked the most, and there was just so many, and it was a lot of different things in that quest, and a lot of different places to go, and it seemed like it was in multiple stages, and it just seemed to have everything about it, so that I thought was cool. So I'm going to say Stormcleave Outpost.
Antha?
My first choice is going to be Study in Sable as well, but I think I'd go with Tear of Danku, since it requires basically a whole party. So if you're going to get the optionals, got to have someone with strength. You got traps.
Oh,
you got
Tear of
wisdom
Dakan.
runes. Yeah, Tear of Dakan. That's
right.
It. So I think that just kind of sums up the whole D&D having the party, each one filling a role.
Okay. It's interesting that you guys all kind of went in that direction. The thing that I kind of was thinking about was variety of mobs, of monsters. And the one that kind of stuck out to me a little bit was Search and Rescue. Because it's a little bit like there's different areas, and you kind of keep running into different kinds of monsters depending on where you are, which from a dungeon crawl standpoint feels a little bit more like D&D, right? It's, um, at least myself and most DMs that I've mentioned, I've known or run into, we tend not to like to do the same monster over and over and over and over again, right? Because things happen so much slower in pen and paper. If an entire dungeon is all skeletons, it's pretty monotonous. So I kind of like how search and rescue, you for a little while you've got some of the armor statue kind of things, and there's an area with kobolds, an area with drow. Like there's a lot of variety of what you actually fight in there. So that's kind of what I gravitated towards. Any other thoughts or good dungeons?
For the interesting mechanic that presents itself in the dungeon itself is I like Rainbow in the Dark. How everything is dark and you somebody's got to carry the light and it's kind of creepy in that way. If you get too far away from the light, you can't see anything, and you could step on that little button and get teleported into a room where fire elementals and whatnot to just attack you and obliterate you and that sort of thing. That kind of the mystery or the creepiness of the dungeon that you might find in a pen and paper game. I kind of like that mechanic in Rainbow in the Dark.
Yeah, it makes sense. Does anyone ever, when you guys have played pen and paper, did your DM make you deal with torches?
Way back when.
Yeah, that's changed a little bit recently with cantrips, but yeah, everybody would have a stack of 10 torches.
Yeah, then you can just cast light on various things, right?
Right.
Which could be problematic.
Like a gold piece or something.
Yeah, or your shield. Or
yeah,
something
shield.
You're just carrying in your hand. Or just cast it on a stick and then, like, tape the stick to your head like a flashlight or something. Glow sticks. All right, so that'll wrap up our debate section there. So some fun questions. Thank you for those that submitted questions for that. I've got a whole bunch of other questions that people submitted as well. So I'm looking forward to kind of working through some of those. The debate episodes will probably be less like this one, less thematic for a while, unless there's something that really comes up that we can really get into. But got a lot of questions to work through, so it'll be great. We'll get into game news now, and cover some of the stuff from the last couple of weeks. There's a new patch, Update 35, Patch 4, which mostly just fixed some smaller things. The biggest thing was they changed Fear Reapers, who now do a line of sight check before they start screaming. They will also arm the screamer if their hit points were reduced significantly. So they'll be less problematic for some players. That's kind of where some things we're running into. Let's see. Severlin chimed in about some plans that are coming up. His initial response was that their current plan is to finish Ravenloft, market that through social media channels, which right now are much more effective for us than other advertising. That's probably true of most places these days. Social media seems to be the best way to advertise, I think, these days. But let's see. Ravenloft will be level 10 and level 30 plus, so players at CAP have stuff to do. They will have a special, quote, veteran status option during the launch of Ravenloft that allows players to create a level 10 character and go right there. So that'll be kind of cool. You can just start a level 10 character and jump right into Ravenloft.
I think this is a great idea because you have the possibility here of attracting a lot of pen and paper D&D people who loved Ravenloft back in the day to a new game and having them be able to create a character and jump right into the adventure to try it out. I think that's wonderful.
Or potentially disastrous if
that too, yeah.
I would say if you're looking forward to Ravenloft, if you've never played DDO before, maybe don't just jump right in with a level 10 character and go straight to Ravenloft. I have a feeling that it will probably if Temple of Elemental Evil and the Sultan of the Slavelords are anything to kind of go by, it's not like it's going to be the easiest dungeons in the game. So you might want to learn a little bit about playing the game before you jump the level.
But it's a good start. I mean, we got somebody in our group that joined just because of the Slavers was added to DDO.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, he started out pretty raw, and I think he died a couple of times our first run through. But in the end, it got him hooked. He's VIP now, and he loves it.
He only died a couple times. That's great. I
That's
think,
really good.
I know I died more than a couple times.
I think we did it on normal though.
Yeah, I did it on Epic Elite the first time I ran it. Although, as far as the classic modules go, Haunted Hall still has one of my favorite modes in the game for myself, because I didn't write. We never used modules when I was playing D&D. But the first time I went into Haunted Halls, 5 minutes into it, I got killed by a door.
Is that the one where the pit opens up beneath you?
Yep.
Yep. Me too.
That was my first 5 minutes of that quest, and it was awesome. It was completely unexpected, but it was pretty hilarious. It was like, oh look, 3 doors. I picked the one on the right, and I was dead. And I was back at the beginning. I was like, oh, I think a door just killed me. That was unexpected. Yep. Let's see. So there's some plans for Ravenloft. They have an adventure pack coming this summer for players to play. We will be exploring the long-term war between the dwarves and drow and dabbling in the Underdark during this pack. So that'd be cool to have some more stuff in the Underdark. Although
Is
I don't
that
know if it's
update
actually
36, Patrick? Or is that 37?
It would be
What did they
36
say?
if it's the next one,
Okay.
which I think it is based on their plans that they said before.
Yeah, what I'm hearing about 36 doesn't sound at all like they're doing any kind of adventure pack, but I'm getting real spotty stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, well, it may be free, but it might still. I mean, that doesn't mean it's not an adventure pack. I don't know. My biggest question from that is: Are they, when they say the Underdark? Is that going to be like a return to the Underdark Explorer area, which is probably one of the least run areas that you can find? I think most people kind of just figure out how to get to Shindelrin from King's Forest, and then figure out how to get from Shindelrin to Belly and the Beast, maybe.
yeah, right.
Other than that, there's no reason to be in there. So
Yeah.
unless you want to do some Slayers.
Hey, there's
yeah.
a really cool dragon encounter in the Underdark. Yeah, I would like to see them do more with it.
Yeah, more purple worms.
The problem with purple worms is once you've done Belly and the Beast and have gotten eaten by a purple worm, right? Like you kind of feel like that needs to be all of them, almost, right? A purple worm that can't actually eat you isn't as terrifying. Let's see other stuff about that. Some dungeons look very cool. They're contrary dungeons with shorter play times, while Temple of Elemental Evil and Slavers series follow the maps and story of those modules. Adhering to the source material kept those adventures fairly long, and they probably want some content that players with shorter play times can play. That would be good, because I think that's been we were talking about this the other week, that the new dungeons with Update 35, Newcomers and Black and Blue, are fairly lengthy dungeons. They're not short.
Yeah.
They're not bad dungeons. I mean, variety is the spice of life, right? But they're longer dungeons. One of their goals right now is to concentrate on content that extends the endgame. Ravenloft will help, and Sentient Weapons will offer endgame goals that we hope will be really cool. Even with that, they're looking at ways to add legendary tokens to the endgame content and make more rewarding to run endgame Reaper as a way of giving characters more goals. Legendary tokens sound interesting. Kind of curious what they'll do with them, but
Yeah, I have no idea what they would do.
I've shared some thoughts on
Maybe-
that in the past, but
Besides upgrading your sentient weapons, maybe.
it would be a possibility. Sentient weapons is kind of an interesting ball of wax, just from the standpoint that, like, how do you make that work? If you can just pick up one sentient weapon and use the entire game, does that invalidate all the other weapons you can use? So, or is it? Yeah, I mean, it just depends on how they use it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, Patrick. That's a real good question.
Which may be why some of the newer, like the raids and stuff, and slavers, the you really can't craft weapons, right?
Right.
It may be that they're kind of holding all of that off, either for Ravenloft or for sentient weapons, because they don't want to invalidate those with sentient weapons. So we'll see. Some current state of the game notes. This is a fun one. We need to pause here and talk about this a little bit. Severlin says he disagrees that Korthos needs a full revamp. It teaches basic adventure skills, and if it went into character building, then it would be too complicated. They have iterated on that content many times, even including outside consultants. The biggest reason for doing a keep on the Borderlands would be more for existing players restarting characters than newer players. If he could change one thing about Korthos, it would be to add a hireling and have a short section showing the player how to summon that hireling. He says that mostly because most builds made by anyone with a passing knowledge of how to distribute D&D stats can solo normal with a good hireling. If a player doesn't know how to use them, they will hit a wall trying to solo content somewhere around level 4 to 5. So what do you guys think about, does Korthos need revamping?
No, not really. I think Korthos is fine. I don't particularly like to do the stuff in there because it's stuff I've been doing for years and years and years. But
Sure.
if you're new to the game, I think it's got the puzzles in there, and it's good. There's a dragon in there, and I think it's fine. It doesn't need. We don't need legendary elite. Kenneth Crystal.
Elite Kenneth
dungeons,
Crystal
so-
level's hard enough as it is.
Yeah, so it's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great starting area. I remember back in the beginning where we really didn't have a Korthos. We just ran around in the harbor looking for stuff to do all the time without any direction whatsoever. I like Korthos. I think it does help the newer players a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs a revamp either. I mean, not everything has to be Legendary Elite like you stated. It would be nice to maybe run Misery's Peak on a Legendary Elite once. That would be kind of cool, but I think Korthos is fine.
See, I think if you do Misery's Peak on Legendary Elite, you have to redesign the quest and it's you that is distracting the dragon. While
Exactly.
Some low-level party is trying to do the quest, right?
Right.
That would be cool as an event.
It would be kind of funny. It'd be kind of an interesting idea for a quest. Like, there's this really super badass dragon. Can you just kite it around for a half an hour and try not to die? Although I say if we're gonna do something like that, it's got to be the Trask, right? It's a great way to bring the Trask.
You and
into
your
play.
Tarask.
Yeah,
Patrick.
I was just going to say that.
Trask would be a cool monster to see. Do you deny that?
It would be cool.
No, I agree. From a pen and paper days, yeah. Whenever somebody was mad at you, they threw the Trask at you, and
And then hope you didn't have a wish spell.
That's the monster that all DMs go through the monster manual and park on and say, "Ooh, this could be fun," and all the players go, "Please not the Trask, please not the Trask." Yeah, I think with Korthos, what's the goal of Korthos to get people into the game? I think there's a few more things than just hireling. I think the hireling is a good idea, but I think there's a few more things than just hirelings that players could be introduced to and given more information on. I think the grotto is, it does okay. I think trapping, a little bit more trapping could be useful. It might be nice to just have a few PCs there, or not NPCs there, that can kind of give you some pointers on building. Just with some text that you can kind of find as you're wandering around. I would say that the hireling is a good idea. I'd say the other thing I think that would be really helpful for new players is some way to help them navigate around a city and find quests and use a map and stuff like that. That might be helpful. Let's see, other things that Severlin said. It's okay to let players run around with suboptimal builds. They have revamped the enhancement trees and randomized loot at this point to a degree that most people with a passing knowledge of D&D can stumble onto a build that can solo normal with a healing hireling. They need a revamp of the group panel and a revamp of the Adventurer's Compendium, maybe even combining the two into something more intuitive. At the very least, they need to fix some long-standing problems particularly having the group panel not update to start. Although, if memory serves, the reason why that they changed that to not do that was because of loading lag.
Yes.
So,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
the reason why the Who panel doesn't load until you tell it to is because of loading lag. It would try and populate that, which would cause a bit of lag. It would take people a long time to load in the first time. So that's why they changed that. That was one of the things they pegged as that. So I'm a little leery of having to populate that. Although I could say you could say that when you open the page the first time, any one of the LFM pages, it just populates then. So I think there's kind of intermediate that you could probably land on. We need some system that will lead players to appropriate quests when they log in. A quest of the day system that suggests appropriate content to the player. If someone comes back to the game, there should be a more intuitive way for them to find something to do than remembering how to use the Adventure Compendium, which I agree is not the best of tools. And try to figure out the location of the quest giver and quest enters without trying to piece out the clues that the panel provide on where to go. The quest of the day could be kind of interesting, just as a concept. I think it'd be pretty fun
cool.
if.
Yeah, maybe up the count for like those remnants, those mysterious remnants. Like they're all doubled in the quest of the day if you run it the first time, kind of thing.
I don't think you need to do remnants, and I think that might be pretty hard to do just in general. But if they had a system where the quest of the day was like double base experience
That'd be all right.
and double the chance to loot, to name loot out of that quest, I mean that would be kind of neat. Incentive
Yeah,
for
but
people
what
to
would
run.
happen if everybody on every server was running the same quest? Would something melt down? It's like everybody in the building flushing the toilet at the same time.
That's a.
I think they might want to benchmark that idea first.
Actually, I can tell you. I remember, 'cause I live in Seattle. Back when they built Safeco Field, I remember hearing a news report where they actually had people spread around the building and synchronized flushed the entire stadium.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that it did.
Yeah, they did
That wasn't a bad thing.
No, they did that in Milwaukee too.
It was kind of one of those days of like, that's a really strange thing to get paid to do, but it's probably a pretty smart thing to check. So, yeah, I think the quest of the day could be fun. Have a little incentive to run something like that. Maybe even without an incentive, it could do some good. But
Definitely an interesting idea. I'd hope that if they're not going to make an incentive, they'd at least give us the UI option to disable it.
yeah, right. Well, I mean, they already have the UI option for that, right? Because when you log in, in public areas, you can get those little quest objectives, and you can cross them out if you don't want them.
Yep.
Although, yeah, if you had that every single day, that might be a little annoying. But I don't know that doesn't necessarily like direct you in the direction of the quest very well, does it? Can you actually select them and then it highlights your map on where to go and stuff like that?
No, I don't believe you can.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, map navigating is not exactly a well-taught skill in the game. If you're listening to this and you don't know how to use your map, figure a way to figure it out. Open the map, click on things, use it to navigate, kind of figure out which direction you're pointing and stuff like that. It will help you a lot. I think we talked about that a few weeks ago, actually. They have toyed with ideas for a Travelarium, some magical place that sends players to the location of various quest givers and the entrances of quests directly, or as directly as they can. There are a lot of complications to it, particularly when many dungeon entrances are inside combat, active adventuring landscapes, and even dungeons. They've had to scrap 2 designs for it already. If the Travelarium has different wings or halls for certain level bands, then players would naturally see other players there level gathering in the area in groups, and new players would have a hub where they can choose content appropriate for their level. That assumes they can come up with a workable design that doesn't completely invalidate a lot of exploratory content. Also, he said they need a revamp of avatars. If you like cosmetics, you'll like this. The game's use of color and the graphics are dated, but the characters are particularly in need of a refresh. Once they have finished up the plans for Ravenloft, they will look at some changes. Half-elves need a straight-up revamp.
Yeah, I gotta laugh at that one too.
Yes, that was hilarious.
Some of the other races need refreshed options or alternative racial choices. They don't want to change out beloved looks of existing characters, so one way they could do it is introducing alternate versions of the races, maybe Forgotten Realms versions of the elves, dwarves, etc. They'd have to solve the problems of how such races would start, though. Kind of some fun ideas. The one thing that gives me a little pause is Forgotten Realms versions. Does that mean new enhancement trees for them? I don't know if I want there to be like a lot of differences in enhancement trees there.
I mean, Forgotten
Or
Realms
build
already
options,
have
but-
Sun Elves. We have Sun
Yeah.
Elves.
But those are iconic. That's an iconic race. I
Yeah,
mean, this
true.
sounds more like a. I mean, if we're talking iconic races, then yeah, I think more iconic classes or class race combinations would be welcome. I don't know that everyone would do them a lot, but I think enough people would be interested in them and enjoy them. So I think that could be viable. Yeah, I don't know why half elves have to get called out specifically, but not the most popular race. I understand.
I'd say that's some exciting news. Maybe my Drow Elf won't be purple anymore.
I don't know if you should be allowed to have a not purple drow elf. Seems like kind of a criteria of a drow elf, right?
Or
So-
a green ASMR, if you like Aelanwi's work on the forums.
Sure. Let's see some others. So he answered a couple questions from people. Mindos asked, "So Reaper is the default expected difficulty for endgame players?" Someone replied by no. I'm not sure how you came to that conclusion. The problem they are trying to solve isn't that we expect players to do Reaper. They actually see a small percentage of players in Reaper, although it is a welcome feature for people who love the challenge. It's more that the players who like Endgame and like Reaper feel as though they are forced into the TR loop if they want to make decent progress in Reaper mode. I think it's a pretty fair and accurate statement of the general consensus right now. For the majority of players playing Legendary content, it will be more in a matter or content pacing and long-term rewards. Roland Abril asked if they could take time to address issues many players having with expansion pack purchases and various other customer service issues. Sutherland said he hears the concerns. They have plans that should help, though we can only hire and train so fast. The issue were people who have bought some aspects of a pack and how that prevents them from buying that pack later is a function of how the store vendor works, which means they are coordinating with outside people to address the issues. Some other things he said. They'd like to revamp paths. They are painful, though, because the tools to make them aren't good, and we have to make a separate path file for every race, class, and ability point total, so it's really time-consuming and very easy for him to prioritize other tasks. What they would really like is a way to export builds in a readable format so people can post them. Even if we don't have automatic import interface, if the export had a level-by-level option, it would allow others to follow the build blueprint. I mean, an input thing would be awesome. Like if you had your character at level 30 and like exported it, and you could import it as a path file and then follow that later, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Can you imagine how much
That
easier
would be very
leveling after
cool.
reincarnation would be?
Oh yeah.
Although not that after a while you get pretty good at doing that. Although I would say that the thing that is more time consuming than anything else is reorganizing my hotbars.
Yeah, and rejoining all those channels and that sort of thing.
I mean, rejoining channels is just a couple of keystrokes, but I mean, redoing the hotbars can take 40 minutes to an hour. Although, in fairness,
True.
part of that is because I have to go find put all the gear I had been wearing that I can't use right now anymore back into the bank, or find the gear that I can use, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of stuff there. Let's see. Someone said, let's see, Dunkelzon said this all looks awesome. We realized a lot of is we want to, not we're getting to, so that vein. Without wishing to take too much from many positive things, he's disappointing UI scaling isn't also on there somewhere. Sev said he agrees with you. The engineering resources have been strapped with the transition and store tasks. Once they're past those, hopefully they can look at UI scaling, not before Ravenloft, though. He wishes they could steal it from Lotro, but the UI code is very different. Go figure. So, let's see. Bonus days through today. You can get double daily dice XP and plus 20% guild renown boost. Someone asked about the Remnant Special Rewards weekend. Cordovan said this will be happening soon. Not next week, though, which may be a new type of bonus. Hey, that's exciting.
Huh.
Yeah, we'll see what that looks like. Um, store news. So there's an issue about sometimes people wouldn't get a scroll bar when they open an internet window or when it opens an internet window for them. It was suggested to clear your internal browser's cache. That's worked when testing internally to fix the problem. If you do that and still encounter a problem, let them know. Sales through May 18th. First of all, you can get a plus 20 Heart of Wood in the store. So they have those on sale now. You can also get 20. Yep.
Sorry, can I interrupt there for a second? And it's about the store and it's all kind of semi-relevant, but is it me or have I seen like plus 20 hearts, autos boxes, and maybe pretty much the same old weekends, the double daily dice roll. We just had that one recently. I mean, it seems like there are some things that we haven't seen in like forever, like those remnant weekends or the +7 tomes, and then there are things that we've seen, 3 or 4 times within the last several months. Like, so for example, all the +6 and +5 and those lower tomes have gone on on sale, and it seems like in the plus 20 hearts, it seems like we've had those within the last couple of months. It seems like you would want to space all these things out and like not totally forget some things and overuse other things. It's like, I'm just wondering, are they having problems with the store in that, we lost the code for the +7 tomes, we can't ever offer those again kind of thing. What the heck is going on with the store and their team there as far as, what they're offering.
So are we talking about why the store is
offering.
an external internet browser? Because that has to do with third-party things.
I get that, but it just seems to me that there are things that they just seem to be forgetting to put on sale or even putting for sale.
And I can't even remember the last time I seen an adventure pack for sale.
Yeah, exactly. No
Sure.
adventure pack been for sale.
Yeah, I don't know how they kind of come up with some of that stuff. There's some sort of a schedule-ish for bonus days, and I know that some of them get used more than others, but I don't really have any information on some of that stuff. I don't feel like the plus 20 Hearts of Wood or the autos boxes have been more or less available.
We've had autos
years.
boxes for sale 3 or 4 times this year already. We haven't had +7 tomes for sale at all.
And that, and look, I'm not looking at a calendar or anything, but that actually seems to me par for the course. Like, I don't remember +7 tomes being a regular rotation thing compared to some other stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any information on how they decide what comes out when, other than I'm sure that they look at numbers and try and figure out what the best to help meet the bottom line. I think there's certain things that are, +7 tomes is something that I think they probably don't put on sale very often, just from the standpoint that that's something that directly kind of plays into that idea of pay to win, which they tend to try and stay away from as much as possible. Whereas a +20 Heart of Wood is essentially just a free reincarnation without any of the benefits. So, yeah, that's about as much as I
kind of makes sense with the racial TR coming out as well.
Yeah. Let's see. So store sales this week, you can get 20% off of Sovereign XP elixirs, Treasure Hunter elixirs, Greater Slayer boost, long-lasting Supreme ability potions. You can also get 5 free Bigby's Red Guiding Hands with the coupon over here through May 18th. Which one of these days I need to actually do something with some of those hands.
I've never tried one. I think I'm going to have to get one now that they got it on the coupon.
Well, I've gotten the coupon ones, but I've never bothered to use them, which is probably unfortunate because I could probably find a good way to use them, but I just haven't yet. With that, we can get into community news. We'll start with the 235th Chronicle. See, Ginger Spice's Dragonborn project enters its second life, so you can check out that video. The Damsel DDO did prey on the Hunter in their last show. The guild for the week, the Champion Slayers Guild's a level 165 guild on Galanda, looking for people who log in regularly. The guild asks for no profanity in the guild chat. Join them for good times and a packed airship. Find Z, that's 4 Z's and 2 E's on Galanda for more information. The comment for the week says, a group of birds are called a flock. What are a group of earth elementals called?
An avalanche.
That's a good one.
Pebbles.
A rock show?
A cluster.
Those are all pretty terrible answers, but
Yeah.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's never going to be as good as a group of ravens, right? They're called
A murder.
Yeah.
That's right.
Let's see. Fansite news. The Damsels hosted DDOCast last week. We'll talk about that a little bit. And they answered a bunch of listener questions. DDO Players News talked about Ravenloft and Level 12 in episode 130. Even though it worked on her sagas in the latest blog post, and Mickey entered week 27 of rating. Let's see, some other stuff going on. We'll link to Voodoo's forum post on his videos. He's got his weekend videos, which is kind of highlighted by the fact that he's been doing videos for 3 years now. So congratulations to him for that. That's always fun to get to those benchmarks. He's got, I think, almost 400 to 500 videos on his YouTube page that you can check out as well. Most of them are kind of how-to videos or kind of what he's doing. A lot of teaching rated videos and stuff like that. DDOcast news. So thank you again to the Damsels DDO for hosting last week while I was out and busy working. It was very helpful to not have to worry about that, especially given all the other things I had going on. It was a weird week. But they did a great job, answered a bunch of questions that I've had kind of backpiled from listeners, and I really enjoyed the show. But yeah, again, a huge thanks to the Damsels DDO for covering the show for me for a week. DDO Splat is also back. We did parts 2 to 4 of Delares, and it was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of dying.
For me especially.
Somehow I managed to get through 2 rooms worth of mobs to a shrine to raise people. That was a little surprisingly impressive.
Indeed.
But yeah, we had a lot of fun. So you can catch that show on twitch.tv/DDOcast. It's Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, most Tuesdays. We'll be back this week as well. We might have a new member. We might be up to a group of 4. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What glutton is that?
He played with us last week.
Oh, okay.
Fennicus, I think it was his name.
Okay.
We're going to do Lightning Post. So this is kind of going back to episode 471, the last show that I did. And we were talking about update 35. One of the things that we were talking about was running the storm out. I did verify between then and now that if you're riding the storm out, the skeletons do actually cast the storm bolts. And if you are out of range, they will do so in very quick succession. And out of range or out of like melee range, which can include if you aggro them on the bottom and then jump up to the platform on the top where the dragon is. They will zap you and zap you and zap you a lot. So something to be aware of. FuzzyDuck81 wrote in, one of his main criticisms of the new quest is mob placement, where there is the same kind of arrangement in groups each time. Understandable in places like Temple of Elemental Evil, which use the encounter type mechanic. But in static quests, it's really more noticeable that shortcuts have been taken with the copy and paste tool versus other quests where some are wandering and a few in bed, others on specific guard posts, etc. Yeah, which is, I talked to that, but it's kind of referencing for search and rescue. It definitely gives it a little extra flavor that goes a long way. He said newcomers he finds to be the more enjoyable of the 2 quests. The platform room is pretty fun if you don't have wings or similar. Then the timing on switching the last air jets can be pretty challenging when soloing.
Yeah.
Black and Blue, he sends somewhat more tedious and repetitive with a lot of boring empty spaces used as padding versus newcomers, which is more variety. I agree. Wholeheartedly there. He's only tried the new raid on normal once before the update to reduce hit points, and when they failed after spending over 3 hours in there. However, he likes the mechanics overall, though it probably could do with some extra tweaking, and thinks it looks phenomenal. It'd be nice to try it out again sometime with the changes. I highly recommend it. The hit points are a lot more reasonable now, so you shouldn't spend anywhere near as much time. Unfortunately, I think the damage was kind of done, and a lot of people are really scared of going in there, which is sad, because it's actually a pretty good raid. He thinks that he said that adding some extra way to mitigate the lightning damage would be nice, something similar to how you're given the boots of grounding in haunted halls. Not a bad idea. Maybe an item with a number of charges, either auto-consumer or switchable, or activated quickly that lets you manually ground yourself out safely to clear your stacks and set a number of times. Perhaps even just a couple items that let you count as sheltered when not moving and out in the open would be great for the puzzle solvers to use. He likes that the skeletons are turnable in the raid, although I think that may only be on normal. We were kind of trying to figure some of that out recently. The new loot is great. He likes that they have a strong, specific theme to each item rather than having a more mismatched set of effects. Yeah, I agree. Some of the packs, a little less frequently, or less recently, were kind of a little hodgepodgey on what they kind of offered.
Yeah, the orbs and the trinkets work together pretty well. So I thought that those are good things.
He really likes Fuzzy Duck really likes the Dragonborn race. They look phenomenal, and the racial tree has some nice abilities. The breath weapon is pretty fun, but seems more gimmicky than a practical thing without a lot of spell power and metamatic investment. I can't get past the fact that the Dragonborn look kind of like fish/lizard people.
No, you can't get past that.
They look a little weird. I think it's the lack of hair, actually. I'm just not used to seeing something with
Oh,
scales.
come on, they look fine.
Yeah, they look okay. Let's see. Other racial changes are really nice. He likes the Memories of the Last War enhancement that makes vanilla Warforged even more, or more even with Bladeforge. Yeah, I like that enhancement a lot too. He likes the shader Spike's chain is actually viable now that it scales with melee power. Let's see. He suspects,
I didn't know that. I'll have to try that.
Yeah, it was one of the changes they made to make it more usable, more good. He suspects certain things appearing on the buff bar rather than debuff bar might be due to some back-end categorization thing, which is probably true. If something is treated as a buff, then it means there'll be less way to have it not affect someone when it's supposed to, preventing potential exploits. I was actually thinking, because we were talking, so that was coming from the buff bar. Some people were saying that want the guild buffs take up too much room. I can't remember if I said this on the show 2 weeks ago or something I thought of in between, but I think it would be kind of nice if maybe they added a third type of buff so that you had like guild buffs as one level, and then your normal buffs like the next row, and then a third row for debuffs. So just make a third row kind of a thing, kind of spread things out a little bit. I think to make it easier to see some of those buffs would be nice. Let's see, Steve Howe wrote in as well. He agrees with me regarding the frequency of the lightning strikes in a new raid. The amount of damage to do is pretty high, but it's survivable if you're prepared for it. It's more the fact that the damage isn't too outrageous. It's just that the more stacks you get, the more damage you take. So the number of times you can get struck by is a little much, though. Maybe cut the rate by a quarter or a third. I think mostly that has to do with the skeletons casting it a little too frequently. It's kind of my new assessment, having determined that they in fact do that, which for me kind of enforces the idea that staying together more as a group and killing skeletons faster is better than doing puzzles, spreading out and doing more puzzles at once. It's kind of seems to work a lot better for us in the ways that we've been doing so. Livmo agreed with Voodoo. He doesn't think the raid deserves a bad rap. He had a blast. He was one of 7 noobs to the raid, and he only died a lot in the end fight because he wanted to test some stuff, and he enjoyed the puzzles. As puzzles go, they're pretty easy puzzles, and they're, I think anyone can do them a little easier than most other puzzles in the game. And Francis wrote in and said that the baby white dragon newcomers is unkillable. It just stops fighting, which is good to know. I was kind of slightly concerned that if you killed the white dragon, you'd fail the quest.
You'd fail the quest.
It's a long quest to fail.
Yeah, true.
our question for the week comes from Dakin on Orion. Who is your favorite DM? I'm assuming he means the Dungeon Master voices.
Somebody,
I gotta go.
please help. Yeah, that guy, the original guy.
I gotta go with Mr. Greenwood.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say the two that kind of jump out to me are definitely both of those, actually. I really like the DM work, the voiceover work in Haunted Halls. Not just from the standpoint that I think he's got a really great voice for it, but the commentary. If you've not done Haunted Halls with the commentary version, you should definitely try it out. It's pretty interesting, although it can be a little distracting if you're trying to fight and listen at the same time. But I don't really pay too close attention to the DM voices and who's doing what, but I really like when they, like, it's really clear, Cry for Help is kind of the prime example, that the Dungeon Master is doing voices, but in a way that's like, oh, that feels like an average Dungeon Master who's not very good with voices is doing voices.
Yep.
It gives it that D&D feel.
Sure, absolutely.
So, I love it.
Yeah, I agree.
Although the woman that did those quests out there in the
I think it's the same one who does the kobolds.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
I think her name is Cindy, but I'm not exactly sure.
Oh God, the orchard quests. Yeah. You know, I thought she did a really good job.
I mean, look, I think all the DMs do a really good job. I was a little disappointed by the guy Ty Willingham, the guy that did the Slavelords. And I really only say that because I was probably almost the entire way through the chain the first time before I went, oh wait, this is supposed to be a special guest guy doing the voiceover, but he sounded so similar to some of the other voices, it wasn't distinctive for me. So that's kind of why I was a little disappointed by that. Not that he did a bad job. It was just that I think it was more the writing than anything else. They just kind of lacked something to say. Oh yeah, this is supposed to be this really famous cool guy that's doing the voice on this. So.
You said Ty Willingham. You mean the ex-coach of the Washington Huskies?
No.
Okay.
I know
his name.
I know who Patrick means. It's the guy who considers himself a professional DM.
I didn't know he considers himself a professional DM. It's not Matt Mercer. It's from that group though.
Yeah.
Critical Role or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention. I don't watch that show or really pay attention to it very much. Dracula. If you actually listen to DDO Players News, sometimes they have him do their intro. They have a clip of him doing the intro. They also have a clip of Cindy doing the intro as a kobold. But that guy was like the DM work was solid. It was just his voice was so similar to the original Dungeon Master that I didn't pick up on it. Was all. So with that, we'll close out the show. Thanks for my guests here for being on the show. If you'd like to run with any of us, we're all on Kyber. We had a lot of guests on Kyber all of a sudden. It's kind of awesome because I can actually play with them occasionally. But thanks for listening to the show. And thanks to my guests here, and thanks to all the contributors for DDOcast. It's a great group of folks to help make this show happen. Thanks also to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast for making DDO happen, and thanks to Cyberage for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit DDOcast.com. You can give there, or you can also support us on Patreon if you want to do kind of a more monthly thing. All of the money goes to prizes, and the very minimal cost of doing the show. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, or if you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, maybe a topic you'd like to hear us debate about, or hey, you just want to say hi, you can leave a comment, or you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media for the latest cast updates. Our tip for the week comes from Lexi on Shalona. Don't be afraid to hit that O button and put up an LFM for anything. Chances are there are a host of other players who would also rather do things as part of a group, but are just as hesitant. Great advice. We've had that a few times too. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.